the district presented was that the imported water was a significant source. I think at the time the state board's position was no one's forcing you to take that water. And there's no...
Oh, yes.
Can we refuse it?
as far as... And then talking to water quality, imported water right now is actually at 50 milligrams per liter. Groundwater is higher than that. So right now, your imported water is lower. So it is, as Basil said, a range. I think he's going to talk about it right now. There's a range of values of imported water and groundwater. It's not a constant number. The imported water is not always higher.
And right now, groundwater
and the
is higher.
groundwater sometimes is higher.
Can I just, this kind of just dawned on me. Every time I come to one of these meetings, I kind of get another.
And I get nervous
feel
when it
for
dawns on
something,
you.
right? One of the things that we've talked about is that this is a state regional water board decision.
Mandate.
Mandate. Quality. Excuse me.
Okay, I'll keep going.
Okay, and so there's nothing to say that tomorrow they're not going to make another decision. Well, let's make it 90 milligrams per liter or 80 milligrams per liter. But the idea that I just realized is that, and Mariette, I wanted to ask you this question too, because I know that you said during the scoping meetings that you would accept comments throughout the EIR process, and so I intend to send you a comment, and that is that if we were to just build a pipeline straight to the joint outfall system and put as much water as possible down through there, then that would eliminate the possibility of the state changing the requirement again later. Okay? And it may, if we actually said we were going to do that, people in Ventura might actually change their mind because they won't get the water. Okay? It will just, if it cost a half, the brine line to the ocean part was $250 million, as I remember the discussion to go to the joint outfall system. Well, if we spent that money and then we didn't have to do anything in extreme quantity after that, that would be a great solution. And we take the brine out of the mix.
Let me jump in. That is something we did look at, and not to the joint plant. That's a capacity issue. We looked at when we were looking at doing MFRO and brine disposal in a new pipeline to a new outfall in Ventura. We looked at being able to size that as large as possible to send all our water to the ocean. So we would bypass discharging to the river. The cost was significantly higher, and I think the other issue, like we talked about, was how much still had to be discharged to the river to maintain habitat that's been created. So it's something I think there's still some discussion in the plan.
But even if we talked about the cost being substantially higher today, then but the cost of maintenance of this and operation, there'd be a break-even point as well. So do you have any idea what that number is, what that funding number is?
All right, this spoiler alert, the draft facility plan and EIR that's going to come out in July, we'll have those kinds of numbers. It's like getting to the movie before the spoiler alert in the movie. We'll have those numbers. They're working on those numbers, and if they aren't to your liking, one of the things you can do is put that in and saying, we'd like to see that spelled out.
Okay.
But I fully anticipate that is something, I'm here to let you know that movie is coming out, the draft version of that movie is coming out in July, and we're looking at all kinds of options to solve this bind we're in. And if that one is, it should be in there, but if it's not, it's easy to just say, hey, put that in, tell me the numbers. What
will it be in 3D?
If it's cost effective and environmentally friendly. Can I just go through this? Because I see Al wants to give me the hook, and then I'll get that question. This just shows you the range of chloride levels we've had over the year. From 1973, you can see the bandwidth. This line here represents the state-mandated chloride limit. And you can see we're dancing, the range is going up and down. Some points we're below it, but most of the time we're above. And you can see in 97, 2005, we're way above this limit. But then with the water softener situation where we're pulling out a lot of water softener, as well as the change in some of the water composition coming into our system, we've moved this bar down. But what you clearly see is that we're not consistently meeting that limit. And the only way we can meet that limit is by doing a facility plan and an environmental impact report. That plan is going to look at ways of meeting that 100 milligrams per liter limit for both of those plants and avoid steep or minimize steep fine, and just comply with what the regional board wants. The objectives of these plans, again, to meet that state-mandated chloride limit. One of the things we also want to do is we're a leader in reuse. If you came back in time in 1958, not too many people were using sewage water on golf courses, putting it back in the aquifer indirectly. We did the first study because we recognized that over 50%, 60% of our water is imported, and we cannot continue to rely on outside sources for our water. We now have over 650 reuse sites, but sadly in Santa Clarita, we use less than 0.5% in reuse. It goes to that tournament players golf course, and we'd like to encourage that. Again, what we always try to do is do it cost effectively and energy efficient. We're one of the biggest producers of green energy. We use 40 megawatts of electricity every day throughout all the sanitation districts, 11 wastewater treatment plants, our office. We generate 120 from our landfill. We also operate one of the largest landfills, and we generate energy to cover that. And then we want to make sure we preserve space on these treatment plants, because you never know if there are new mandates and new facility be required. And I've said my spiel. Question.
All right. It's my understanding that there's a limit on using recycled water on golf courses because the accumulation of salt kills the lawn. And that brings up my other point. Why are we trying to grow golf courses and lawns in a desert?
All we're trying to do is if someone has a need for water, we're going to provide it. I'm not going to make a judgment on a golf. I don't golf myself. But if you have a use for water, we'd like to, especially large quantities, we'd like to use it.
My comment ties in with our organization, SCV Fair Elections, and this whole water issue. What has happened is that the developers have packed the water boards. The water boards allow overdevelopment and allow the developers not to have to pay their fair share of what the real hookup costs are for all the development in this community. It's a classic example of privatizing the profits and socializing the costs. So here we, the citizens, again, are earnestly we are being unfairly penalized because of how the developers are able to control our water boards and what goes on in this community. So part of our process is to be politically active when we are electing water boards.
I only would say is that the folks that use our system, they pay their proportionate share to clean up the water. Depend on your quantity and your strength of your wastewater. Whether you have apartment buildings or single-family homes, you pay your share to clean it up.
Thank you. Can I go back to the fines that they're talking about versus the fluctuating of us up and down and ask the question?
This slide?
Correct.
Okay.
And ask the question that the fines are based per day, right? Based because it's up and down, right? So one day we might get charged this amount, one day we might get charged nothing. So ultimately, not knowing how much that would be per day, each instance, we might find out that it would be cheaper to accept the fines to actually build some kind of plant.
I can guarantee you that it won't be cheaper to take the fines and not build. Looking at some of the other districts where the people haven't complied, well, Los Osos in, I think, San Luis Obispo, they lost control of that facility. They got the maximum fine. Frank, do you want to add anything? See, Frank is waving his hand. Someone hand him a mic.
I don't like Frank.
I like Frank. He saves me.
Okay. Speaking to fines, the law, and someone else probably going to say it'll never happen, the law gives the regional board authority to fine per violation, so it's arguable if it's per day but it's per violation, $10,000 and $10 per gallon. We discharge 20 gallons That would be 20
20 million gallons.
million gallons.
20 million
That
gallons.
would be, we sample once a month.
Okay, hold that thought a minute.
Wait, Frank, that's a good point. Frank,
One minute.
Frank,
So you're looking at our output from Santa Clarita, and we're running at 128. Now, we dropped from 170-something to 128. We've dropped 50 points.
We've come a long
with
way.
our efforts, right?
yes.
What's coming out of Carson? What measurements coming out of Carson? You just told me that 17 of those other facilities are dumping it in the ocean. They're just bypassing everything. They've got their thing into the ocean. Well, if they're running over 110, shouldn't they be fine just like us?
It depends on the use of the water
So
body.
they've got an
There are
output, but you won't give us an output.
It's not that we won't give you an output. It's just God didn't put us right next to the ocean. The ocean is far saltier. Even when we talk about salt and brine, the ocean's
Wait a minute,
water.
North Hollywood isn't near the ocean either.
But they're in the network. We have
Then
about
put
12.
us in the network, and you fine us when you fine Compton. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, let's just say this: we can look at those numbers and see what it costs to put us to build a pipe there, and those numbers will be there. We will do that.
There's one
But
big,
cost is still going to drive it as well, right?
yeah, there's one big misunderstanding. These gentlemen are from, and ladies, they're from the water board. They're not the water board. They're not our sanitation district board. They are the sanitation district staff.
I see them working for a solution to help us.
But that's not their job.
Yes, it
Their
is our
job is
job.
to, hold on, Tony. Their job is to come here and tell us the facts about what's happening. What we need to do, hold on, Tony. What we need to do, if we want to change the decision makers' minds, is we've got to go to the decision makers. And right now, the two biggest parts of those decision makers are on the Santa Clarita City Council. Okay? They make the decision. These guys just react to what the board decides to go and do. So they can provide us with information, and we use that information to go talk to our council members. That's one. And the second is, if we have any alternate suggestions, we write them down and send them to Mary so they can be included in the EIR.
And I want to address 2 points. One, let me make this point, because we're here to get the facts correct. First thing, building a line of over 30 miles from Santa Clarita to North Hollywood will not be cheap. And you can ask any sewer contractor, and we build sewers all the time. That'll be a big ticket item. I don't know the numbers, but I'll guarantee it's going to be maybe in the $100 of million. So let's deal with the fact. It's not cheap to build. We will look at it, but we're still looking at costs. In terms of the 2 board members, the issue is if the mandate goes away, the driving force behind this facility plan goes away. The board members do not control that driving force. We can disagree about the study, but they do not control what the regional board is telling us, what we have, what the limit is. So let's address the regional board not to do. Ding ding. Yes. They're the ones telling us this is your standard. You can change all your board. I shouldn't say, but you can do whatever you want. But the regional board, ultimately, at the end of the day, that's their standard. The state mandated standard. If you tomorrow can change it to 143, which is what we asked for, years ago, Frank, are we good at that point?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. That's it in a nutshell. If you can't change it, to this talk, we need to be accountable. Fines could occur. And a lot of times when they fine you, they tell you build it, and then the fine is layered on top. And who pays for those fines? There you go. You do. Now, I'm just giving you the reality. I'm not saying it's a pretty or easy reality. And so what we see here are experts like Frank and Mary. We need to build additional facility to meet that 100 milligrams per liter standard. And that's what this facility plan was at, and I talked about the objectives. One of the things, they're looking at all kinds of options. One of the option as Al mentioned, what about building a line all the way from Santa Clarita and tie into the joint outfall network? If it's not in the draft plan when it comes out, we will look at that. But one of the things we're looking at is using ultraviolet light to disinfect. We disinfect our wastewater, our sewage, to kill the microorganisms that could get through with chlorine. Chlorine does a good job of killing those nasty bugs, microorganisms, but it also puts more chlorides in our water, about 10 milligrams per liter. So one of the things that we think we can reduce that level by changing over to UV. That's something that will be studied. Again, cost always has to, the bottom line is the bottom line. And then other thing we're looking at is looking at reverse osmosis, where you basically filter that water, remove a lot of the salts. But one of the things with reverse osmosis is that 15% of whatever you treat is going to be brine waste. It's a salty waste, and I always tell people, it's not even as salty as the ocean. We just don't have the ocean nearby. The ocean water is far saltier. But we have a brine waste, so one of the things they're also looking at, if you go that route, and there are many different options they're looking at in this draft facility plan EIR, you have to figure out how would you get rid of the brine. Some people said, well, could you put it in deep wells? Some say you could build, go to the joint outfall system, is what this representative that Al was talking about. And those things that have to be looked at on what the costs are. And this schematic shows the joint outfall system. This is our treatment plant down in Carson. And if we tied in all the way from Santa Clarita here, I don't know, is that North Hollywood or wherever, then you could tap into the whole set of trunk sewers that we have all throughout here and just kind of use the sewer pipes and send the brine down there. And then we're in is there a question?
Have you looked at an above-ground brine pipeline following the river, which is going to be the easiest? I mean, that's the way the water flows right now.
We'll take that back. I'm not sure. Have we looked at?
I don't know about above-ground pipeline along the river. That's the way to go.
That's what we originally looked at.
Yeah.
I think this was cheaper, but it's shorter.
One last.
Sorry, I got fired up last time.
One last comment. The OVOV plan is slated to double
The what?
One Valley, One Vision.
Oh, okay. Okay.
General plan is slated to double this population. Building plants, we can't build enough plants to solve this problem. If we dump it all into the joint outfall and build plants there or whatever, then you can go ahead and build it all you want. But I don't see it. I hate people telling me it's unfair, but I see this as being very unfair towards this population. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just living, and it was okay until somebody drew a line someplace and say, you're exceeding it and you have to take care of it. I don't see how we can't. The first thing we have to do is stop building if we're contributing that much waste. So,
but
everything's just diametrically opposed and set up against us. I don't see how we could win.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
This lady. All right. Well, she has the mic. Well, who are you? Sorry.
Okay. Just to clarify, what are our political options? Because I understand. I know that's not your area because you're an engineer, but I mean we have the regional board. They could theoretically raise the standard to 143 and we'd be all right. They could also delay the time that they would require this implementation to take place so that we could do further study, and that could happen. Aside from them, what power does our local Sand District Board of the 3 members, 2 who are sitting on City Council have? Do they have any power whatsoever?
I think they have the regular the advocacy powers, like Al in the earlier presentation advocated suing. There's in America anyone can be sued and can sue, but there's a cost to that, and you have to look at the probability of winning. There's also legislative relief, and I think they've tried those routes. So there, but I guess it goes back to the state mandate and the regional board.
How many people are on the regional board?
There are like 9 appointed members with different areas of expertise on the regional board. I don't even know if not all 9 are filled, but they have different expertise. I don't know, Frank, could you add more? I got that right? Thank you, Frank. You taught me well. Yeah, but that's where I think we should get engaged, and we're just trying to clean the wastewater as cost effectively. We all know about the salt, but when you look at our permits and all our treatment plant, we have constituents you probably never heard of that we have to meet. This one is just a very intractable problem. Salt's just one of, I don't know how many different compounds that we always have to monitor for, and we meet all the time.
Okay, I have a question. I understand, I keep seeing that they want to do the RO plants, the reverse osmosis, in a lot of the information that keeps coming up. And I understood, and maybe you can correct me if I'm not right, that when they process the water through an RO plant, that they lose 30% of the water. And we're very concerned about how much water we get in the first place. We're supposed to be conserving. Now, if the RO plant is going to be wasting that water, then how can they justify an RO plant? The other item that I'd like to talk about is the talk about having recycled water is way back when everybody else was getting involved in it, and this community couldn't seem to push so that they could get it. And we on this side of the town, we use that water, we pay for that water, and who's using it? Newhall Ranch, or rather Newhall Land and Farming, who have it on their golf course. Now, they're now talking about maybe they can have a system where maybe the Newhall area can get it. But they have never really promoted it very much because they were waiting for Newhall Land and Farming to use it. Now, that's where our water went.
In terms of the MFRO or reverse osmosis, 15% of what comes in is brine. So if you have 100 million gallons coming in, 15 million gallons, not 30%. In terms of recycled water, our water, we can't go into selling water directly, but what we're trying to do is let people know it's there. Anyone who has an idea for a large reuse project, working with the local water purveyors, we're on board to making that happen. We'd be more than happy to do that. But we can't directly sell it. But we're saying that this resource, and that's one of the things we're looking at, that we could theoretically take the joint outfall system, but there will come a day where that water is a very valuable resource to the vitality of this valley. I see that personally coming. Go ahead.
Really quick, just wanted to let you know, for recycled water, Castaic Lake Water Agency has a recycled water master plan that they're going to be developing, and it's going to look at the demands and the supply and where their distribution system can be built. The reason, not defending or anything, where it's being used now is the water is at the reclamation plants. So whoever's closest to the reclamation plants would be the cheapest to get the water to. So that's just a fact. You have to start at our plant.
When it's all gone, they're going to say, well, we're saying, well, so you can't have it on the east side of town.
We have a lot of it right now. Step on. Let me go quickly through this. I think I've overstayed my welcome.
I haven't.
I just want to say no final decision's been made. In January, we released a notice of preparations outlining the issues we're addressing and looking at some of the potential solutions. In February, we had 3 scoping meetings, and I met a lot of you fine folks there. Mary did that presentation. We got comments. We got a lot of great comments on that Mary was telling me. Right now, they're producing a draft environmental impact report and facility plan. That will be released in the beginning of July. And please get your information to Mary if you want to get a copy as soon as those documents come out, because that's where we want your input, because your input is going to make sure we get a project that balances all the interests. And when those documents come out, we'll have public hearings. public hearings taking additional comment, then we roll it up into a final document, then it goes to our board of directors, and then they'll have to determine, do we agree with this recommendation? Do we modify this? Do we not do anything? So nothing's done until our board has approved and adopted a plan. And this kind of just summarizes the schedule again. NOP was in January. We had the scoping meetings in February. Draft EIR is being worked on, will be released in the beginning of July. There'll be a comment period for the environmental impact report, 2 months. There'll be public hearings up here for those reports. Take written comments, oral comments, roll them into a final document, and then there will be a final environmental impact report and a facility plan, what the recommendation is, based on all the things we're trying to balance, and then it will go to our board for their approval in December. And this is the most important slide. Get Mary's information. Email her if you're not on the mailing list. If you have any comments, get it to her, and to make sure you're in the loop. Because what we really want you to be plugged in the process. This was an unusual presentation, the fact that we took questions and went along, because we really want to hear what you have to say.
Along with you saying nothing has...
Your time is up. No. No, I was just reading. No. No, I'm sorry. It's late.
I'm reading this from
Thank you,
this
Ken.
is an April 4th, 2012 from Grace Robinson Chan. I think you know who that is.
That's our chief engineer and general manager.
Yes,
she
right,
just took over.
Chief engineer.
You
and
can
you're
just shut
saying
that.
that nothing has been decided. Clearly, the first phase of Newhall Ranch, they did decide, and they said, you're going to put the treatment on the Valencia plant, and you're going to dump the salt down in a well, which environmentally is not acceptable.
I don't want to argue with you this late, but nothing has been decided. Legally, nothing...
I'm talking now about her report here. In here, her report says, projects that have already received state low-interest loans include power generation equipment, expansion of the Valencia WRP.
I'm not sure what you're reading, but
I'm
regarding
reading
this...
her report.
Yeah, but I'm saying regarding this chloride compliance facility plan, nothing has been decided. If I'll look at your report and does it say chloride compliance facility?
You should know what they're presenting when we go down there for the rate increases, and this is right off of her report. It says, very truly yours, Grace Robinson Chan. Now, you just said that plant wasn't at capacity, and it could take that extra 6,000 from Newhall Ranch. Now they're saying it's already been approved, the expansion of that plant. Why approve an expansion if it wasn't at capacity?
Frank, are you familiar with the agenda item? Can someone give Frank the mic? And Al is already up here trying to get me off the stage. That is the kindest thing anyone's done to me today.
Okay, as far as expansion goes, there was a 2015 EIR and facilities plan, and that proposed, that was at the time when population was growing, and there was a phase of expansion approved at that time. And that's the phase that it's talking about. Now, that phase was based on when the population reached a point where that additional capacity was needed. We have not reached that point, so that additional capacity has not been approved. As far as it has not been built, it has been approved for financing at whatever point it becomes built. And it is not, Newhall has their plan for their own plant. This is for the Santa Clarita, the area.
It has nothing to do
As far
with
as capacity at Valencia, we are discharging, Basil said, 14.5 million gallons per day. That plant has a capacity of 21 million gallons
21
per
million
day.
gallons per day.
6,000 homes will not increase it by more than an MGD, roughly.
Yeah.
So there is plenty of capacity. Not only that, they will be paying connection fees and service charges to connect to the system. They are not getting anything free. And the reason we're allowing 6,000 homes is because To operate a treatment plant, they cannot start it piecemeal. They cannot start 10 homes by 10 homes. They need to establish sufficient flow. They will not be able to connect any more than that until the plant is built and they transfer that flow back to their new plant.
And I want to add one last thing. It's a fork in the road. What are we going to do to comply or potentially face fine, or as Al would want to do, I can't even say the word, sue. But those are the issues we're dealing with. Those are distractions. We have, it's really about the state mandate. We have to comply with that, and that's what we're tasked to do as a wastewater agency, a wastewater treatment agency. If you have issues with the mandate, I think you know where to go. Thank you.
All right. Well, this is Basil has a funny way of enjoying himself, I tell you. But from this morning, we just wanted you to remind you that actually, Marcia McLean mentioned this at one of the last couple of city council meetings. There is some legislation going on in California attacking the exception that the Regional Water Board has to simply set regulations without going through the normal oversight process. There is also legislation that would prohibit them from being lobbied by some organizations such as the developers or the farmers on their own within a certain, outside a certain period of when something would be considered. So from the standpoint of the state, there is legislation going on right now to kind of change things, because people have been all over the country are kind of upset about it. You realize last time I talked about legislation at the national level to change the definition of navigable waterway, and so all those kinds of things have happened. From this morning, some of the questions that I asked that got asked was, why are we spending money on opinion polls? And was that expenditure authorized by our sanitation board? And as I found out since then, yes, it was. It was on November the 23rd? Did you say? Excuse me? November 9th. November 9th, 2011. And Michael has got for us the list of questions that Frank was glad to supply him. And so we can talk about that a little bit later, and we can then ask about results. Some of the other questions that came from some of the other meetings that we really want to find out when the new movie hits the silver screen is what is our encumbrance going to be if we join the joint outfall system? What would our connection fees be? What would our utilization fees be if we were to establish that brine line? And obviously, that same questions could get asked, what would it be if we pumped all the water down that area? When they kept talking about me wanting to sue, I thought that it was very interesting that the standard seems to have been generated on the downstream users' change in the way that they use their water, switching from citrus to salt-sensitive products. And since I don't believe that was the intent of either the Clean Water Act or the Para-Cologne Act, I thought maybe we should ask if that premise has been tested in court. And right now I think at this time none of the premises have been tested in court. And so while we are currently going down this road of the EIR, which says to the Regional Water Board, we're doing something, and would then forestall fines until such time as we had stopped. And of course, by law, we get 5 years to implement. We could also do other things and test other avenues as well. So I want to thank Basil and Mary and Frank from coming down from the Sanitation District staff. I think they knew they were going to come into a group of people that was not overjoyed with happiness as to what was going on, but yet they still came. And I think that's really great. I believe that is something that they've shown, and that the sanitation district staff has shown that a lot of other agencies have not. They're willing to come down and tell us facts.